Today, our teacher is Ma'am Mia. She is a graduate of Philippine Science High School and graduate din siya ng BS Biology dito sa UPLB, also master's degree of biology in UPLB. So today, she will be handling our biology class and siya rin ang author ng materials natin. And for some of you na baka nakausap niyo na siya in person because she is also in charge of our Batangas and Calamba and Santa Rosa area.
Okay po. Thank you, Sir Neb, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, good afternoon. Kamusta kayo? Kamusta kayo? Okay ba? Ready na ba for the biology class? Class pick? Tingnan natin kung may class pick. Pwede ba mag-class pick, sir?
Yes, magka-class pick tayo mamaya.
Uy, wow. May class pick daw mamaya. Okay. So, if you're ready na rin ako. Let me just share my screen so you can see. Wait lang ha. Wait lang. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now? Okay. Nakikita ba? Okay, so let's start with the first question for biology. I hope nakapag-answer kayo para at least tuloy-tuloy yung discussion natin today. Okay, so let's start with question number 1. The question is, sweating in terrestrial mammals enhances evaporative cooling. Which characteristic of life is illustrated in this example? Okay, can I see your answers? Can you put them in the chat box? Tingnan natin kung anong mga sagot nyo. Madali lang yan. Kayang-kaya yan. Some of you answered A. Others? Mostly A. I see one C. Or may mga iba pang C. Okay. The correct answer here is, it's letter C. Homeostasis. Okay. When you say homeostasis, okay, let me just go back to that. We are talking here about the characteristics of life. Okay. So what do we mean when we say characteristics of life? Characteristics of life, of course, these are, kaya nga siya characteristics of life, these are characteristics that are present in living things. Okay, so let me just, okay, tama yun. No? C is, homeostasis is balance. Okay, let me see. These are the characteristics of life. So, for you to easily remember them, kasi masyadong madami, I put here abbreviations nila. So, we have here Cromcard. Okay, wait lang, mali yung sa... Okay, so hindi homeostasis, regulation yung nandun sa... Okay, that's okay. It's still the same, no? Homeostasis and regulation. Okay, C is still the answer. Okay, so what are the different characteristics of life? Cromgard. So C is cells. Presence of cells. So all living things are composed of cells, whether unicellular, so let me just, wait lang, unicellular or multicellular. Okay, so I can see mali daw yung nandun sa PDF. So that's fine. That's fine, no? You just pakibago na lang yung, well, regulation and homeostasis are more or less are the same naman. So, still, letter C pa rin yung sagot. Okay. So, first characteristic is cells, presence of cells. Living things are composed of cells, whether unicellular or multicellular cells. Another one, so Cromgard, CH, H for homeostasis. So ito na yung sinasabi natin, why is homeostasis the same as regulation? So as you can see here, when we say homeostasis, there's one word that would come to your mind, and that is balance or equilibrium. Tama ba? balance or equilibrium. So when we say homeostasis, there are regulators. So that's why you have the word regulation. So there are based on the stimulus that is present, there would be certain processes or functions that would result to a specific response. So pag masyadong malamig, kailangan mag-heat up ng body. Pag masyado namang mainit, kailangan mag-cool down. Okay, so that's correct. Nag-a-adjust ang inner temperature sa outer para magka-equilibrium. So C, H for homeostasis. What's the next one? R is for reproduction. So all living things are capable of reproduction, no? Multiplying. So reproduction could either be asexual or sexual reproduction. So I have a question. Sige. Later. Medyo na-excite ako. So later, we'll ask about, may question ako about characteristics of life. So let's just proceed. Another characteristic of life is organization. So living things have certain levels of organization. So as you can see here, atoms group together to form molecules, and molecules group together to form cells. Cells to form tissues, tissues to form organs, and so on. Familiar naman kayo dito, no, sa biological organization, levels of biological organization. Can I see yes kung familiar kayo dito? Okay, very good. Now, let me just clarify that for living things, the lowest level of biological organization is cells. So as you can see here in the slide, cells up to organism, ito na yung living things. Pero from molecules, atoms, they're not living things. That's why we call cell as the basic unit of life. Tama? Okay. So Chro, C-H-R-O. What's the next one? M, metabolism. So living things are capable of metabolism. There are two types of metabolism. So we have what we call catabolism and anabolism. So catabolism is breaking down, while anabolism is building up. Okay? So yon. We need metabolism in order for us to make use or utilize of the inorganic materials so that we could use them to produce energy. Okay? Medyo bilisan lang natin. Growth is another characteristic of life. So wala naman na forever. Kung living things, they're capable of growing, 'di ba? Hindi lang basta magstay ng maliit. So this is self-explanatory. Adaptation, this is my favorite. As you can see here, yung adaptation, we have several means of adaptation. In this example, for birds, there are different types of beaks. Birds would have different types of beaks depending on the food source that they have. So, let's say, ano bang kilala yung bird dito? So, let's say we have here. Wait lang ha. Yung pinaka-last. Okay, raptorial bird. So, what do you think is the food? The food that is food source nun, ng mga birds na yun. These are carnivorous birds. Okay? So, kung carnivorous birds, okay, wait lang ha. Gusto ko kasing ayusin yung pointer. Okay, wait lang. Sige. So, yeah. Kung carnivorous birds sila, as you can see, their beaks, like the eagle, tama si Giancarlo, okay? Eagles would have very strong and their beaks are hooked, okay? So, yes, that's correct. Because they need those adaptations in order to tear and pull the flesh of their prey. So, yon. So, kung makikita nyo, iba-iba yung type of beak depending on the food source of the bird. Very good. Huwag naman human, nakakatakot. Okay, sabi ni Gabriel human. Okay, R is for response to stimuli. So, dati we call it irritability. We used to call it irritability. So, organisms, living things are capable of responding to external stimulus. And then, of course, the last one is development. So development is another characteristic of life. So from a single-celled zygote, fertilized egg, we undergo several stages of cell division, organogenesis, morphogenesis, para ma-form yung kung anong itsura natin nung pinanganak tayo, which is fetus. Okay? So that is development. Now, ito na yung question ko, yung excited ako kanina pang itanong. We know, of course, you're aware of what's happening around us, no? Knowing that these are the characteristics of life. Okay, balikan ko later yung question na, what's the difference between growth and development? Pero ito muna yung question ko na pag-isipan nyo. Knowing all the characteristics of life, do you think viruses are living things or not? What do you think? Are viruses living things or not? So habang pinag-iisipan nyo yun, sagutin ko muna. Ang dami nagtatanong, what's the difference between growth and development? So when you say growth, there's an increase so there's continuous cell division, there's an increase in the size of the organism, and development involves from yung nagkakaroon ng organogenesis, nagkakaroon ng changes in how the organism looks like. So they're very much related. They come hand in hand. Okay, so kaya medyo confusing. But basically, growth is there would be increase in size, and then development is nagkakaroon ka ng mga organs, nagkakaroon different forms. Okay, so tingnan natin yung mga sagot nyo. So most of you are saying that viruses are, some would say yes, some would say no. Okay. Well, up to now, it's still debatable whether viruses, but if you look at the characteristics of life, we said that all the characteristics of life should be present in an organism. So para mo masabi na buhay siya, dapat nag-exhibit siya ng lahat ng characteristics of life. And viruses are, first, they are acellular. So that means that they're not composed of cells, technically. Okay? Because they're just made up of capsule, tapos meron lang silang genetic material, but they don't have the minimum requirements, structural requirements of cells. Okay? And another one, a very good point, is they are not capable. So tama si Juan Cesar Torres. So they can't multiply without the host. So what viruses do is when they're out of the body, so yung, diba, SARS-CoV-2 is the virus that causes COVID-19. So when that virus is out of the body, they within their incubation period, if they can look for another host, then they can multiply dun sa host na yon. But beyond the incubation period yung active na period niya, pag dumampas na doon, hindi na siya pwedeng makapag-infect. So they rely on the reproductive mechanism of the host cell in order to reproduce. Okay, so yan, madidiscuss pa natin yan more, especially yung mga requirements for you to say that it is a cell. What are the structural requirements? Madidiscuss natin yan sa mga susunod na classes. So I hope klaro tayo doon. Are we clear on that? Manggagamit ng viruses. Okay, may hugot. Pero tama. Okay, let's continue. Question number 2. The stages of photosynthesis are... Okay, what's your answer here? Let's see. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis occurring in plants. Okay. Parang may hugot pa sila doon sa virus eh. Okay. So for question number 2, most of you answered C, some answered A. Okay, let's see what's the answer is. The answer for question number 2 is letter C. Okay, so photosynthesis occurs in plants, as we all know. This is the overview of photosynthesis. Okay. Nakikita niyo ba yung cursor ko? Can you see my cursor? Wait lang, sorry. Nakikita ba? Kasi, nakikita ba yung cursor ko? I want to point. Okay. So, here, let's look at this is the structure we call chloroplast. So the chloroplast is the organelle that is responsible for photosynthesis. As you can see, the chloroplast has two structures. So we have, what do we call this? The green ones. So para silang disc, stacked one on top of the other. What do you call these? So these are the, sige nga, kulay green. Tapos dito nangyayari yung light reactions. We call them thylakoid. So very good, Leonard, thylakoid. So we call them thylakoid discs. Light reactions occur in the thylakoid discs, while Calvin cycle occurs in the stroma, Okay? So, which among the two general processes in photosynthesis, which among the two requires light? Napakadali naman ang tanong na yun. So, which among the two requires light? Of course, it's nakakagulat yung sagot. Of course, it's the light reactions. Okay, so thylakoid is the site for light reactions. I have a question. If light is required in light reactions, does that mean that Calvin cycle occurs during the night? So, ano sa tingin niya? Uy, ang cute ni ma'am, may fan na ako. Okay, Calvin cycle, does it occur during night? Because it does not require light. What do you think? Okay, though Calvin cycle does not require light, most of it still occurs during the daytime because they rely on the products of light reactions. So not necessarily. Okay, kaya nga before, they're called dark reactions. Tapos binago na kasi nga, not necessarily occurring in the dark. Okay? Okay, let's proceed to question number 3. Which of the following cell modifications do not function to increase surface area of the cell? What do you think? Which do not function to increase surface area of the cell? So the answer here is, para saan ba yung increased surface area? Why do we need to increase surface area? So mostly cells would need increased surface area to increase their surface area for absorption. Okay, so the answer here is A. Okay, so that means that B, C, and D, so yung red blood cells, root hairs, and your microvilli in the cells of the small intestine, as you can see here, they function for absorption, so their structure has increased surface area. Okay, so ganito yon. In biology, the structure is always related with the function. So you can really, if you don't know the function, pwede yung medyo mahulaan, depende dun sa structure. So for example here, as we can see, red blood cells, they have increased surface area because they function for what? What's the function of red blood cells? Diba they carry oxygen? Okay, so another is the root tips naman. For root tips, they need root hairs in order to increase area for absorption of water. And look at this. Okay, so as you can see here, this is an intestine. Okay, so cross-section yan ah. So when you say cross-section, for example, this is your intestine, you cut it ganito, crosswise. And then look at it from the top, that's your cross-section. So when you see the cross-section of your small intestine, there are protruding structures called villi. So itong finger-like structures, we call them villi. And if we look further, zooming in, may makikita pa kayong maliliit pa na finger-like structures. We call them microvilli. So more surface area for absorption of nutrients in the small intestine. Okay, what is the function naman of cytoplasmic extensions? So although ito kasi medyo tricky because pwede nyo isipin na pang-increase din yan ng surface area, but actually the functions of cytoplasmic extensions would be to transmit signal. So we have here, this is the cell body. We have the dendrite and the axon. Okay, so axon would carry signal away from the cell body, and the dendrite would carry signal towards the cell body. Okay, so mukhang okay naman kayo sa lessons. Ang dami namang sumasagot. Pag may question ha, ano daw sagot sa number 2? Ano ba yung number 2? Number 2 is... Ano number 2? 2 is C. Yes, letter C. Okay, let's go to question number 4. Ito, favorite ko to, genetics. So, corn is a diploid with chromosome number 2n equals 20. A student observed the dividing root cells of corn. He saw a cell with 20 chromosomes aligned at the middle. This specific cell is in which stage of cell division? What's your answer for number 4? So, nasa chromosomes daw, all the chromosomes, 20 chromosomes are aligned at the middle. So, what is that specific stage? Okay. So, kung makikita nyo, yung B may metaphase 1, yung D naman metaphase lang. Bakit kaya? Okay. The answer here is letter D. Yay, ang daming tama. Pero madami ding mali. Oh no. Okay, nalilito siguro. So don't you worry. I'm gonna give you a technique on how to remember the different stages of mitosis. So these are the stages of mitosis. So here, interphase is actually not part, pero nilagay lang siya para lang for reference. Interphase, take note, it's the non-dividing phase. Okay? Ano ba yung mitosis? Mitosis is basically cell division. So, sa life cycle ng cell, meron din silang life cycle, no? You have the dividing phase and the non-dividing phase. So, for the dividing phase, that is called mitosis. Okay? So, sabi ni Raymond, walang sex cells ang corn, kaya di pwede meiosis. So, later, balikan natin yan. Okay? So, anyway, let's go back. Let's finish this first, the stages of mitosis. So, interphase is the non-dividing phase. Prophase, this is when the chromosomes start to condense. So, as you can see, ang pagkakaiba nila, dito sa interphase, parang thread-like lang yung chromatin fibers. Hindi pa sila nakaka-form ng chromosomes. While in prophase, the chromosomes are very distinct. Okay? And it's in metaphase wherein the chromosomes align at the middle. So, nakalinya yan, lahat ng chromosomes nung cell. So, kung may 20 chromosomes, lahat yung 20 nakalinya. And then, during anaphase, there would be separation. Kasi, each chromosome would have parang ganyan yung structure niya. Okay? Yan. Okay. So, ito yung structure ng chromosome. So, during anaphase, magse-separate sila pag ganun. Para after the cell division, there would be equal amounts of genetic material in both cells. Okay? Balikan natin yung, okay, so, pagka nakita nyo yung stages na walang number, walang 1, 2, ibig sabihin nun, mitosis yung pinag-uusapan. So, kapag kasi meiosis, yung stages niya, same pa rin, PMAT. So, we call it PMAT. Okay? So, PMAT pa rin yung stages pagka meiosis, but merong 1 at saka 2. Kasi 2 rounds ng PMAT yung meiosis. Okay? Good. Metaphase daw, M is for middle. Okay. So, I can see may mga techniques na kayo, no? But I just want to show you this. This is very nice. It's a cell undergoing cell division. So, may fluorescent dye. Kitang-kita nyo yung chromosomes, color, red, orange, and then nagdi-divide sila. Okay. Now, to easily remember the different stages of mitosis, I'm going to teach you hand signals. Okay, so let's start with prophase. So the hand signal for prophase is this. Okay, this is the hand signal for prophase. So anong ibig sabihin? Bakit ganito siya? Yung nuclear membrane mo, yung bilog, nagsisimula pa lang siyang mawala, mag-disintegrate. So basically, all the chromosomes are still inside. Okay. Inside the, balik ko dito kasi para sa akin yung attention nyo. Natuwa masyado eh. Okay. Okay. Tapos, yung, so this is prophase, and then this is metaphase. What happens during metaphase? The chromosomes align at the middle. Okay, so prophase, metaphase, and then we have anaphase. So the chromosomes separate, okay, at anaphase, and then telophase. Okay, so prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and then telophase. Okay, so that is how we remember the different stages of mitosis. Okay, pwede nyo na siyang gamitin para, di ba, parang siyang dance step, di ba? Parang dance step. Oh, okay. Anyway, so let's go back to the lesson. Okay. Last na daw. Last na. Para sa satisfying cell division. Okay. Now, question number 5 naman. Okay. Question number 5. Which of the following is not a component of the cell membrane? Which of the following is not a component of the cell membrane? What's your answer? Ay, huwag nyo i-TikTok ha. Kayo Okay. Wait lang. May question muna bago natin to sagutin. Okay. Question muna. Gusto ko lang balikan yung question ni Carmela. So, ma'am, cytokinesis po. What is cytokinesis? Yung kanina, yung sinabi ko sa inyo na, di ba? Pang TikTok daw yan. Okay? That is basically the division of the nucleus. Okay? After the division of the nucleus, pagkatapos ng telophase, magdi-divide naman yung cytoplasm ng cell. Okay? Now, let's proceed to question number 5. Pwede na? So, what's your answer to question number 5? Which is not a component of the cell membrane. Kanina nakita ko na may mga sagot na kayo. So, most of you answered A. May nagsagot din ng D yata. Okay. So, let's see. The answer here is letter A. Congrats. Ang gagaling nyo. Okay. This is how the cell membrane looks like. The model that is now acceptable, model of the cell membrane, we call it the fluid mosaic model. Okay? Bakit siya fluid mosaic model? So, fluid because it's not rigid. There is still movement. Okay? So, may movement dun sa cell membrane. It allows passage of material. So merong kang konting movement. That's why you call it fluid. And then it's a mosaic because it's a combination of many components. So what are those components? So kung makikita nyo dito, first, we have the, anong tawag dito sa, yung pinaka layer na yon. What do you call that? Yung layer na ganun sa cell membrane. So we call that the phospholipid bilayer. Let me just type it here. Phospholipid bilayer. Okay, so it's made up of phospholipid, and then it's made up of two layers. So as you can see here, meron siyang hydrophobic and hydrophilic end. So hydrophobic, ibig sabihin takot sa water or ayaw niya sa water, and then hydrophilic naman yung mga nasa labas. So yung circles are hydrophilic, and then you have hydrophobic yung tails. Okay. Now, as you can see, aside from the phospholipid bilayer, meron din siyang proteins. Proteins could either be integral proteins. So when we say integral, nakapasok sila mismo dun sa, if this is the layer, nandun mismo yung protein. Okay? And there are also proteins that are just found on the peripheral. Okay? There are also, ano pang nakikita yung component ng cell membrane? Aside from the proteins, meron ding glycolipid. So glycolipid is a combination of glyco has something to do with carbohydrates, diba? And then lipids. And then we also have here glycoprotein. So these are carbohydrate chains attached to the protein. Now, there are also cholesterol molecules in the phospholipid bilayer. Kaya, ang cholesterol, essential din siya sa body natin. Essential siya because it's a component of the cell membrane. Okay? So, yun yung mga components of cell membrane. Very good. Mukhang tandang-tanda nyo pa yung mga lessons, no, based dun sa nakikita ko sa chat. Okay, question number 6. Energy is released through hydrolysis of blank, which is also referred to as the energy currency of the cell. What's your answer to number 6? What is the energy currency of the cell? Oy, A, ATP, A. So, unanimous tayo, no? Okay, ATP is the answer. That's correct. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. It's the energy currency of the cell. We always hear this, energy currency. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by currency? Okay, so if, for example, your cells need energy, they would get it or they would utilize it in the form of ATP. Okay? In the same way that when the cell produces energy, it's also in the form of ATP. O parang sa atin, di ba? Currency, how do you get your allowance? Naku, sad. Kasi bakasyon tsaka ang haba ng quarantine, wala silang allowance. Okay, how do you get your allowance? Ano yung currency natin? Di ba we have peso, Philippine peso as our currency. Okay? So whenever you buy something, it's always in the form of in pesos. Whenever you receive something, pesos din yon. Okay? Unless na lang dollars yung bayad nyo, ganyan. Okay? So in the same way, in the cell, energy currency is ATP. So utilize energy in the form of ATP and you produce energy in the form of ATP. Now, my question is, how do we get ATP or energy from ATP? Okay? As you can see here, yung ATP, meron siyang, kaya nga siya triphosphate, meron siyang tatlong phosphate. Okay? Now, when the bond here is broken, remember that in chemicals, okay, chemical energy is stored in the bonds. Okay? Chemical bonds. So, yung ATP, pag what you call this, kapag ka na break yung bond na yon, magre-release siya ng energy. So if you hydrolyze ATP, ibig sabihin nagdagdag ka ng water, na-break yung bond, magre-release siya ng energy. Okay? In the same way, pag yung ADP naman, which has two phosphate groups, pagka naman dinagdagan mo siya, nagkaroon ng condensation reaction rather, you require naman energy. Okay? Let's go to question number 7. Unless, let me just see kung may questions pa kayo. Okay, ma'am, ano po yung difference ng ATP at NADPH? ATP is the energy currency. Yung NADPH, para siyang, di ba sa photosynthesis, sila yung mga electron carriers. Okay? Okay. Now, let's go to question number 7. Most of you answered C, and that is the correct answer. So, it is an example of enzyme inhibitor. Okay. What is enzyme inhibition? So, first, let's ask ourselves, what are enzymes? So, enzymes, we refer to them as biological catalysts. So, biological catalysts sila, that means that they speed up chemical reactions, biological reactions. Now, how do enzymes work? Ang nangyayari, we have substrate here. Nakikita nyo ba doon sa slide yung purple? So that's a substrate. That is the substance acted upon by the enzyme. And this is the enzyme, the blue one. Okay. The active site of the enzyme fits the substrate. So, yung tinatawag nga na lock and key model, okay, the substrate would fit or would bind to the active site of the enzyme, and that is where the reaction would occur. Okay? Depende kung ano mang function ng enzyme na yon, kung anong reaction yung mangyayari. Now, if there is a competitive competitive inhibitor. So, from the term competitive, nilalabanan niya or nakikipag-compete siya dun sa substrate. So, it has the same active site. So, dun siya magbabind sa active site. Okay? Tapos, yung competitive, yung substrate mo, hindi na siya makakabind kasi nandun na yung competitive inhibitor. Okay? So, pag may iba na, hindi na makapasok yung substrate kasi may iba na nandun sa active site. So, that is competitive inhibitor. Okay, so basically yung inhibition, may question dito, can you repeat the function of inhibition? Inhibition from the term itself, pinipigilan niya. It inhibits the reaction to proceed, whatever reaction that is. We're referring to enzymatic reactions. Okay? Outs. Oo, masakit, no? Now, ano naman yung non-competitive inhibitor? Okay? So, pag non-competitive inhibitor naman, may inhibitor dun sa, hindi siya sa active site. We call this the allosteric site. And because of that, nag-iba na si enzyme. So, hindi na fit sa kanya si substrate. Okay, so that is, kaya hindi na siya makakabind. So that is how a non-competitive inhibitor works. So yon, pag competitive inhibitor, edi meron kang, may nililigawan ka, tapos may nauna. Okay, sinagot, so hindi ka na pwede. That's competitive inhibitor. Pagka naman non-competitive inhibitor, paano naman yon? Pag non-competitive inhibitor, wala namang ibang nanliligaw, pero let's say may sasagutin ka na sana, pero may nanulsol, di ba? Na ayaw sa'yo, sinabi na pagkasagutin, di hindi kayo magkakatuluyan. Talaga maisingit lang no? May question dito. Sabi, repressor, okay, balikan natin yung choices Mas masakit daw yung non-competitive inhibitor. Oo, kasi muntik na, no? Okay. Ano daw yung regulator, vector, and repressor. Okay. So, regulator is a gene. So, regulator gene. Basically, it controls gene expression. Okay. Marami ba natatamaan? Okay. Wait lang ha, may ita-type lang ako. So, yung site for non-competitive, wait lang. Let me just, non-competitive, wait lang. Ay, sorry, wait lang ha. Ano ba nangyayari? Okay. So, yung site for non-competitive inhibitor ay allosteric site. Okay. Rayo ba? Rayo ba yun? So, may gamit po kayong ebook. Ang main reference natin is Biology by Campbell. So, yan. Okay. Hala, nakita niyo na yung sagot. Okay, balikan lang natin ha, kasi may nagtatanong. Ano daw yung regulator, vector, and repressor? So, regulator is a gene that controls gene expression of other genes. Okay? Vector naman, vector is carrier siya. So, it's either, marami kasi medyo general yung vector. Pwedeng carrier siya ng sakit, di ba? Like mosquitoes, they are vectors. But in molecular biology, when we say vector, we refer to DNA, usually plasmid. That's an example of a vector that carries foreign DNA molecule. Okay? And it carries that material into another cell. And repressor is protein. Protein naman ang repressor. So that's the difference. Regulator is a gene, protein, repressor is a protein. But both regulators and proteins, both regulators and repressors, they control gene expression. So I hope clear yun, ano? Okay. Dahil alam nyo na yung sagot sa 8, hindi ko na itatanong. So the answer here is letter D, electron transport system. So this is the overview of respiration. Okay, so respiration has, well, some books would just put 3 main processes or steps, but here we have an intermediate step. Okay, first we have glycolysis. So dapat alam nyo na to, di ba? Review. I'm sure nag-ATP counting pa kayo in school. Tama ba? Yung binibilang kung ilang ATP. Okay. So, for glycolysis, glucose is converted to pyruvate. And then pyruvate would enter the mitochondria, would first be converted to acetyl-CoA, which then enters the mitochondrion. Okay, so the site for glycolysis is the cytosol or cytoplasm, while the mitochondrion is the site for most of the steps in respiration. Ano nga bang nickname natin sa mitochondrion or mitochondria? What do we call it? Anong tawag doon? So we call it has something to do with power. Mitochondrion is the powerhouse. Very good. Powerhouse of the cell. Okay. So, acetyl-CoA would then enter the citric acid cycle. It's further oxidized in the citric acid cycle to form carbon dioxide. And then, dito, electrons will be carried by NADH and FADH2. Okay, to enter the process of oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, so since this is just an overview, let me just emphasize the site of the processes. Glycolysis occurs in the cytosol, while the rest occurs in the mitochondrion. And then, also what's important to know is that oxygen is required in the last step of respiration, specifically oxidative phosphorylation, because oxygen would be the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain. Okay, Krebs cycle. Saan siya ng Krebs cycle? Krebs cycle is another term for citric acid cycle. Parehas lang sila. Okay? Let's proceed with question number 9. Which among the following mechanisms does not result to genetic recombination in prokaryotes? What do you think is the answer? What are prokaryotes? Ano ba yung prokaryotes? Examples of prokaryotes would be bacteria. Diba? So either yung eubacteria or mga archaebacteria. Okay. So tama. Prokaryotes, they do not have organelles, nucleus. Tama. Very good. Okay. Now, which is not a means of genetic recombination in prokaryotes? The answer here is fission. Fission is just a type of division or asexual reproduction of in prokaryotes. So kung may cell ka, basically pag fission, maghihiwalay lang yung cell. So binary fission. So there is no genetic recombination. Pag sinabing genetic recombination, nagkakaroon ng shuffling of genes. Okay? All the rest are actually means of bacterial gene transfer. Okay? Bacterial gene transfer, ang goal lang nitong tatlo, transformation, conjugation, and transduction, is for genetic recombination. Meron kang isang bacteria, tapos malilipat yung genetic material niya to another bacteria. That is the goal of the 3 means of bacterial gene transfer. So for transformation, simple lang, yung donor DNA, itong blue, is taken up directly by the recipient cell. So this is done in the lab. Okay? Kailangan mong mag-culture ng cells. Yan. So maraming steps to. But basically, ito lang yung iba yung numbering sa PDF. Okay, sige. I-ano na lang natin. Ibang question. Okay. Pero this one is question number, anong question to sa PDF nyo? Itong may bacterial gene transfer, anong question to? So, unahin na lang natin to and then we'll go back. Yung sa abaka, isang question din yan. 19, ang layo, no? Okay, sige. So, unahin na natin yung 19, tapos saka tayo sa 10. Okay. So, conjugation naman is, there is transfer by, through a connecting tube. Okay. Sige, so numbering lang naman yung nabago. Let's just answer this. This is number 19 daw. Okay. In your PDF, tama? Okay. And then transduction is transfer of genetic material through the help of, what do we call this? Anong tawag dito? Mga mukhang alien. What do we call these? So ito ay, we call them, wait lang, anong tawag nyo doon? Doon sa parang, nasa transduction tayo. Yes, bacteriophage. That's correct. So bacteriophage, they are viruses that infect bacteria. Okay. Number 10. Ito ba yung number 9 nyo? Number 10. Okay, sorry hindi na-check yung sa number. Okay. Number 10. Abaca is used as raw material for making ropes, slippers, bags, and clothes. The fiber is drawn from the inner part of the stem of abaca plant. What specific type of plant cells is the fiber made up of? Oh, wait lang. May nagtataas ng kamay. Si Raisa. Ano yung question ni Raisa? Hindi ko mabalikan. Wait lang. Raisa. Pa-type na lang ulit ng question. Raisa, nagtanong ka ba? Okay. So, balikan natin yung mga tanong nyo later na hindi natin nasasagutan. Okay. So, the answer here is letter C, sclerenchyma cells. So, sclerenchyma cells are, type of plant cells. There are 3 type of plant cells. Okay. First is parenchyma. Parenchyma cells have thin, flexible cell walls and perform most of the metabolic functions of plants. So, ang example nito, yung mga parenchyma cells, they're capable of photosynthesis, undergoing photosynthesis because they retain their metabolic functions. Yun namang collenchyma cells, as you can see here, collenchyma cells have uneven thickening of the cell wall. So, may mga parts na thick, meron namang hindi. Okay? They provide flexible support without restraining growth. So, very good example of collenchyma is, kung alam niyo yung celery, kumakain ba kayong celery? It's parenchyma. Okay. O, sige. I-check natin kung anong pronunciation. Okay. So, parenchyma daw and collenchyma. Okay. But ganon, sa amin collenchyma. Anyway, so, collenchyma cells or collenchyma cells, they provide flexible support like in the stalk of celery. Diba, medyo flexible, medyo sturdy siya. Pero pag binrake mo, you can easily break it using your hands. Okay? So, yun yung sa collenchyma cells. And sclerenchyma cells, okay, they have secondary walls that are thick and contain large amounts of lignin. Okay, so basically, ito na yung nasa wood or yung very sturdy na ng mga fibers, like in abaca. Okay? Let's proceed to question number 11. Poinsettia have bright red leaves to attract pollinators. These modified leaves are called, what's your answer to number 11? O, pang-Pasko. The answer here is letter sama si teacher, parenchyma. Okay, the answer here is letter B, bracts. Okay, ang daming B naman nun. Okay, bracts and tendrils, they are modified leaves. So, yung modified leaves, so syempre, leaves sila that have other functions or functions other than photosynthesis. Okay, so bracts would be colorful, of course, to attract pollinators. And then the tendrils naman, they can attach to support, let's say, yung mga vines to, di ba, na meron silang, nag-attach sila, gumagapang, okay? So, those are tendrils. On the other hand, just to differentiate or to define kung ano yung ibang choices, okay? Corolla and calyx are parts of the flower. So, when you say corolla, it's a collective term for petals of the flower. Okay? Individually, we call them petals. Pag sinabi mo yung buong yon, lahat, it's corolla. And then, sepals is a collective term for calyx rather, is a collective term for the sepals. So, sepals naman, individually, pag pinagsama-sama mo yung lahat, you call that calyx. Okay? So, that's very easy question. Let's go to number 12. Roots of legumes such as peas, soybean, and peanuts have nodules containing rhizobium, a nitrogen-fixing bacteria. What is the role of rhizobium? What is the role of rhizobium? It's a nitrogen-fixing bacteria. What do nitrogen-fixing bacteria do? Let's see nga, anong mga sagot niyo dito? Letter C, yung iba A, okay, C, A. Okay, the answer to question number 12 is letter C. Sino ba yung Clyden? Okay. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria, they convert gaseous form of nitrogen to ammonia. Okay? I just want to show you this. This is how, in the roots of root nodules, so makikita nyo yung bukol-bukol nung mga nasa roots ng mga legumes like peanuts o kaya peas. They have nodules. And inside those nodules, pag tiningnan nyo, pag kinuha nyo yung cross-section niya, dun nyo makikita yung mga bacteria. These are rhizobium. Now, what is the function of rhizobium? Okay. You know very well that our atmosphere or yung air natin, di ba, mostly made up of nitrogen. Or the atmospheric nitrogen is in the form of N2. Tama? N2 tayo sa atmosphere. That form of nitrogen cannot be directly used by the plants. So hindi siya pwedeng magamit agad ng plants. Okay. So ulitin ko muna. Yung numbering medyo nagulo. I'm sorry for that, but please do adjust. Lahat naman ng items dito nandun din sa PDF nyo. Okay? Okay. So what nitrogen-fixing bacteria do is they get the N2 from the atmosphere and they fix it in the soil. So they convert it to ammonium. Okay? And then, yung ammonium, it's not directly used up by the plants. So, it will undergo nitrification pa by nitrifying bacteria. Okay? So, again, sorry dun sa numbering, but we do have all the items here naman. Okay? So, is everyone clear on this? Dito sa number 12. May questions pa kayo sa number 12? Okay. Okay. Let's go to question number 13. Skin and its derivatives such as claw and hair form the blank system which function mainly for protection against mechanical injury, infection, and dehydration. So what is your answer to question number 13? So your answer is C. Okay. Madali lang, no? Mukhang unanimous. Unanimous ang sagot natin. Okay. Ano yung adjustment natin sa numbering? Let me just see, So this is question number... Sorry. Sige, hindi ko ma-open yung PDF. Later na lang. So, anong question na ito? Itong number 13 sa akin. -1 po lahat. Okay, sir. -1 lahat. So, for number 12, the answer here is letter C. Okay. So, just to go through the choices, kasi ito yung mga nakakalito na organ system. Okay? So, yung endocrine system is, what's the function of endocrine system? Endocrine system basically yung hormones, di ba? So for control ng mga processes in your body. Okay? Lymphatic system naman for defense. Okay, so you have your lymphatic system all throughout the body. So doon napupunta, nade-drain yung interstitial fluid. And then you also have your lymph nodes. Yung lymph nodes nyo, ito yung namamaga pag may fever kayo. Okay, so ito yung tinatawag na kulane, if you're familiar with that. Okay, so that's for the lymphatic system. Okay. Then we have excretory system. So you're very familiar with this. So you have your kidney, okay, and your renal, your ureter, urinary bladder, and your urethra. Okay. Endocrine system. Okay, ano daw ang endocrine system? So these are glands made up of endocrine system is comprised of endocrine glands, and what they do is they produce hormones. These hormones would go to target cells, specific target cells, which would initiate certain processes to occur. So, for example, in the pituitary gland in the brain, okay, the pituitary gland would release the growth hormone, which is responsible for growth of the individual. So, I hope nasagot yung question, Alessandra. May isa pang tanong, kasama po aorta sa excretory system. Hindi siya talaga part ng excretory system. Ano lang siya, pinakita lang na, kasi 'di ba dun sa kidney, it filters the blood eh. So talagang they're just together. Yung magkalapit lang sila. Pero technically aorta is part of the what they call the circulatory system. Okay? Okay, new knowledge daw. Okay. Nako, new knowledge, medyo dapat review na lang eh. Okay, anyway, integumentary system naman, ito yung skin, derivatives ng skin, okay? Kasama yung hair, claw, nails, okay? Basically, the function of integumentary system is for protection and forming the covering of the body, okay? And take note that sweat glands are part of the integumentary system. Kasi maraming nalilito dyan. Akala hindi siya kasama sa integumentary system. Okay? Let's move forward. Question number 13. In stony corals, new individuals arise from outgrowths of old ones. The new corals, once formed, remained attached to the parent. So what type of asexual reproduction is exhibited by stony corals? Can I see your answers? So it's a type of asexual reproduction. That means walang exchange of genetic material. Some of you answered D. Some of you answered C. Okay. The answer here is, ang keyword dito is the new coral remain attached to the parent. So if the new individual remains attached to the parent, then that is budding. Budding yung sagot. Okay? These are the different types of asexual reproduction. Parthenogenesis is basically production of or development of development of embryo from an unfertilized egg cell. So walang fertilization na nangyayari, pero basically meron ka lang egg cell na nagpo-produce into an embryo. And this occurs in some types of lizards or reptiles. Binary fission is, ito yung mali yung spelling it should be double S. Binary fission is you have one organism like bacteria or paramecium and then basically maghihiwalay lang siya into two. So that's binary fission. Ang budding naman, meron kang organism, may parent ka, tapos merong mabubuong bagong organism. It will remain attached to the parent until such time na kaya na niyang mag-survive alone, then it will detach from the parent. Power of C daw. Okay. And fragmentation. Okay. Fragmentation is just one organism, nahati siya, and then each part would now grow into new individuals. So a very good example of fragmentation would be in starfish. Yan, fragmentation yan. Or if you're familiar with flatworms, yung planaria, fragmentation din yun. May question ako, guys. Fragmentation, di ba, pag it's a type of asexual reproduction. Di ba yung lizard, napuputol yung tail niya? Can we consider that fragmentation? Can we consider that fragmentation, yung lizards? Yung bang lizards ay fragmentation ba yun? No? No? Okay, mukhang galit na galit sa no. Bakit hindi? Okay? Yung nangyayari sa lizard, so the tail would detach from the body. The body would grow into a new tail, tama? So magiging buong organism ulit siya. But the tail that is left behind, hindi naman siya mabubuo ulit na isang lizard. Medyo scary yun, ano? Okay. Regeneration, that's correct. Regeneration lang yung tawag doon. And lizards do that as means to escape. So kapag may harm, escape lang yon. Napuputol yung parang ano siya, misdirection. Napuputol yung tail para doon tas malikot yung tail, doon focus yung predator and then makaka-escape siya. Okay? Yung sporulation, yes, pag-produce naman yun ng spore. New individuals would grow from spores, develop from spores. Question number 14. In humans, fraternal twins are not genetically identical to each other because... What's your answer to question number 14? Ano sagot niyo sa 14? We are looking at fraternal twins. Ano ba yung fraternal? So, not identical. Why are they not identical? Because okay. Letter C. May nakita akong question, babalikan natin mamaya. No. So, letter C is the correct answer. Fraternal twins, or we call them dizygotic twins, they are produced from 2 egg cells and 2 sperm cells. So, yun yung nangyayari pag sometimes in women, there are cases or instances wherein the 2 egg cells will be released during the monthly period, during the menstrual cycle, during the cycle. 2 eggs, pero normally talaga, isa lang, minsan nagkakaroon ng by chance, 2 eggs yung ma-release. And when those eggs are, are fertilized by 2 different sperm cells, magkakaroon ka ng 2 zygote. So, magkaiba sila. Magkaiba yung genetic material ng egg at saka ng sperm, tsaka dito, ganun din. Joy, balikan natin later yung question mo, yung difference ng fission sa fragmentation. Let me just finish this question. Okay? Identical twins, on the other hand, they develop from 1 egg and 1 sperm. So, paano nagiging dalawa? From 1 egg and 1 sperm, so you form the zygote. Later on, during the course of development, yung zygote na yon, di ba, mag-undergo siya ng cell division and all, hihiwalay siya. So, pagka by chance, naghiwalay siya sa early stage, ayun, same genetic material pa rin yon, so you have identical twins. Okay? Kaya, di ba, minsan, nagkakaroon kayo ng mga conjugal twins, yung talagang, tama ba? Yung hindi pa sila fully magkahiwalay kasi dun sila nag-separate during later stages of development na. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Let's yung tanong kanina, fragmentation and fission. Yung fission, may isang organism, let's say bacteria, tapos maghihiwalay lang siya into 2. So, that's binary fission. Yun namang fragmentation, so may isang organism, tapos mahahati siya. Tapos yung, after niya mahati, magre-regenerate bawat isa to form a complete organism. Yung kanina kasi, nasa fission, pag nahati siya, maliit lang muna siya, it will grow. Ganun pa rin siya, mukhang new organism pa rin siya. I hope that's clear. Hindi ako makapag-drawing eh. Kapag ka naman fragmentation, yung halimbawa, worm ito, tapos may tail dito, ito yung head portion. Pag nakat siya sa gitna, yung head part, magpo-form siya ng tail. Yung tail part, magpo-form naman ng head. Okay? So, I hope clear yon dun sa, binalikan lang natin yung question kanina. Okay? So, okay pa ba kayo? Okay pa? Pa-type nga ng yes kapag ka okay pa. May question dito, very interesting. Possible po ba ang fraternal twins magkaiba yung biological dad? That's very controversial. Pero, may mga very rare chances na nangyayari yun. So, yon, yes. Very rare, nangyayari yun, pwede. Okay? Wag na nating i-discuss kung paano, basta, okay, pwede. Okay, number 15. So, mostly okay pa naman kayo, no? Yung iba daw, no. Okay. Number 15. In tigers, white color is due to absence of fur pigmentation. An orange tiger crossed with an albino tiger produced 12 offspring with the ratio of 6 orange is to 6 albino. What is the possible genotype of this orange tiger? What's your answer to number 15? Some answered B, yung iba naman C. Iwanan na natin yung question kanina, ha? Yung medyo controversial. Let's move on na. Okay, the answer here to question number 16 is letter B. So, heterozygous. So, we have here orange tiger. Ito yung given, no? Orange tiger crossed with albino. So, albino is basically lack of the pigmentation. Okay? Pag pinag-cross mo daw silang dalawa, nagkakaroon ng result na 1:1. So, if we simplify the ratio, that would be 50%, 1:1 or 50% orange, 50% albino. So, for us to get that, we need to do a monohybrid cross. So, I hope na medyo natakal na to sa nung high school kayo. Okay, we have capital letter or uppercase letter to denote dominant gene, and then we have a lowercase letter to denote recessive gene. Now, there are 3 possible genotypes. So, when you say genotype, ito yung genetic makeup. Okay? So, it could be homozygous. So, when you say homozygous, let me just type it here. Same. Tapos, kapag heterozygous naman, different. Ano yung same, ano yung different? Okay. Homozygous would have same alleles. Alleles yung tawag dito eh. Genes are alleles. Heterozygous naman magkaiba. Oh, sorry. May correction dito. Wait lang ha. Let me just stop sharing. Wait lang for a while kasi baka magkamali. Hindi ko na check. Okay. How do I... Okay. Anyway, there's a correction here. Sorry, wait lang. Sir, wait lang. Iayos ko lang. Ano ba? Ayun. Wait lang. Let me just... Anong number nga yun? Type lang muna kayo kung may question kayo. I just want to change this para... Okay. I-share ka na. Yan. Let me just share my screen again. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Okay. So, I hope you can see my screen now. Yung binago ko dito, tama. It should be homozygous recessive. So, homozygous dominant, the phenotype will be orange. Heterozygous. So, pag heterozygous, you don't say dominant or recessive, ha? Okay, heterozygous. The genotype would be orange. Okay. Bakit orange yung genotype ng hetero? Kasi, ibig sabihin, yung pag sinabi mong dominant, that means siya yung masusunod. Okay? So, kung meron kang dominant A at recessive A, kapag ka pinagsama mo sila, masusunod yung dominant A. So, doon lalabas yung orange. Orange na color. And then, recessive kapag ka albino. Okay? So for us to get the 1:1 ratio, remember yung given, 6 orange is to 6 albino, dapat ito yung cross natin. And we use Punnett square. So for Punnett square, you just get all the genes for one parent. Ito, let's look at the first parent here. Nakikita niyo yung cursor ko? So let's look at the first parent here. Didistribute lang natin yung alleles niya. And then the other parent, you put it on the other side. And then you get all the possible combinations. Okay? So, if you get the phenotype of the first, of the heterozygotes, they would be orange. And the homozygous recessive would be albino. Kaya, if you look at that, so that's 1, 2, 2 out of 4. And then 1, 2, 2 out of 4. So that is 1:1 ratio. Okay? May question dito. Very interesting. Bakit daw hindi ito big A, big A? Okay. Anong mangyayari pag kinross natin yung bakit daw hindi yan yung cross natin? Big A, tsaka small a, small a. Ano ang result ng cross na yon? Pag yan ang cross natin, ang result niya would be all heterozygotes. Okay? So, all orange. Tama ba? So, we will not get the 1:1 ratio. Okay? Let's proceed to question number 16. Number 16 ba ito sa inyo? Hemophilia. Okay, for question number 16, individuals with hemophilia, a sex-linked recessive trait, lack blood clotting factors. They may experience prolonged bleeding, and why is this condition more common in males than females? So what do you think is the answer to this question? Why is hemophilia more common in males than females? Okay, medyo hati. Hati yung sagot nyo. Merong A, merong D. Okay. The answer to this question is letter B. Okay. For males, only one copy of the allele is enough for the trait to manifest, as opposed to 2 copies in female. Let me show you why. Okay, this is the human karyotype. So when you say human karyotype, nandyan lahat nakalagay yung chromosomes natin. And as you can see, there are 22 pairs of body chromosomes, which we call autosomes, and 1 pair of sex chromosome. Okay. Now, kung kayo ay lalaki, biological males, you have 22 pairs of autosomes, and your sex chromosomes would be XY. So ngayon, kapag ka naman females, 22 pairs of autosomes and XX. Because our chromosome number is, pag inad nyo yan lahat, this is 44 plus 2, that is 46. Okay? Kung hemophilia, it's an X-linked recessive trait. So, ang mangyayari sa males, since XY lang sila, isa lang yung X nila, kung ano na yung allele carried by the X chromosome, yun na agad yung magma-manifest. So, you only need 1 copy. Unlike in female, for females to have hemophilia, dapat they should have 2 copies of the hemophilia allele. Okay? So, let's proceed to question number 17 ba to? 17. So, which is the correct flow of information during gene expression. So the correct flow of information during gene expression is what? It's letter B. So DNA, the information in the DNA would be transcribed to form the mRNA, which is what we call the transcript. And from that transcript, it will be translated to an amino acid chain, which later would undergo post-translational processes to form the functional protein. So ito yung kabuuan ng tinatawag nating gene expression. This is how the code in your DNA is translated to become a certain protein. So madali lang itong question na to kung alam niyo yung steps. So we have transcription and translation. We'll not go through the step by step yung mismong details nito kasi medyo mahaba yon yung transcription, translation. Okay? Now for question number 18. Okay? Presence of analogous structures in sugar glider, which is found in Australia, and flying squirrel, North America, allow them to glide through air. Though they do not share common ancestry, their structures are similar due to, what's the answer here? They have similar structures because of convergent evolution. That's correct. So, meron ditong mga terms. We have homologous structures and analogous structures. So, how do we differentiate homology from analogy? So, when you say homology, the structures are similar because they are inherited from a common ancestor. So, the wings of bat, the forelimbs, the human arm, if you look at yung bones, yung structure ng bones, yung pagkakasunod-sunod, they are similar because of common ancestor. On the other hand, pag sinabing analogy, like wings of bat, butterfly wing, and bird wing, the structures are similar, but not because, so similar structures in unrelated organisms because they have evolved to do the same function. So in this case, in this example, ang function nila is all for flying. Okay? Now, what is divergent versus convergent evolution? So, convergent, di ba? Pag convergent, towards each other. Pag divergent naman, naghihiwalay. Okay. So, divergent evolution, you have parent species and then they diverge or they become separated through time. Nagkakaroon sila ng mas maraming differences in their characteristics. And yun namang convergent evolution, they are not from the same ancestor, but later on, because they may be, parang nagiging mas similar sila. So, pa-converge siya ganun. Okay? Naguluhan na sa numbering. So, this is number 18. And I think yung number 19 kanina is the, anong yung number 19 natin kanina? Penicillin yata yun. So, ito, tama na yung numbering natin. So, we're in number 20. Okay? Can we proceed to number 20? Number 20 na tayo. Which is not a characteristic of animals? So, which is not a characteristic of animals? Ito, madali lang to. Animals are not prokaryotic. So, if animals are not prokaryotic, what are they? Ano yung opposite of prokaryotic? So, tama, no? Tama yung sagot nyo. So, animals are rather eukaryotic. So, they are not prokaryotic, they are eukaryotic. What do we mean by eukaryotic? That means that the cells of animals have nucleus. Okay, so yung DNA, genetic material ng animals, nakapaloob siya sa nucleus na nasa loob ng cell. And there is presence of organelles. So meron tinatawag na compartmentalization. So that is yung characteristic ng eukaryotic. organisms. Now, para lang madaling yung maalala, I know you're familiar with rooms or apartment or bahay, okay? Kapag ka sinabing prokaryotic, para siyang studio type. Di ba yung studio type, isang space lang yon, tapos doon nangyayari lahat. Nandun yung dining area, nandun yung living area, yung bedroom, tapos nandun din yung kitchen. So that is prokaryotic, parang studio type apartment. Pag eukaryotic naman, there is compartmentalization. So there's a specific room for merong bedroom, merong, di ba, meron ka ng mga rooms or divisions. And that is through the presence of the organelles in eukaryotic organisms. Okay. Other characteristics of animals, they are multicellular. Okay. They are also heterotrophic. So pag sinabing yung heterotrophic, they can they cannot produce their own food. So they have to rely on other organisms for their food. Okay. And then means of reproduction of animals could either be asexual or sexual, and the symmetry could either be radial or bilateral. So, we humans, tayo ay bilateral symmetry. Ibig sabihin, isa lang yung axis of symmetry natin. Diba? Unlike, let's say, starfish, marami siyang axis of symmetry. So, you call them radial. Their symmetry is radial symmetry. Okay? So that's question number 20. We have 5 more questions left. Are you still with me? Ano pa ba? Gising pa ba kayo? Gising pa? Okay. May question dito. Ma'am, sa prokaryotic bacteria versus eubacteria. Eurobacteria. Okay. Yung term na eubacteria, yung term kasi na eu, ibig sabihin niya true. Okay. So, yung eubacteria, ito yung common na bacteria na alam natin. Ang other types ng bacteria ay archaebacteria. So, yung archaebacteria naman, sila naman yung maingay yung dog namin. Okay. Archaebacteria naman, sila yung mga primitive bacteria. They can survive in harsh environments. Okay? So let's proceed to the next question. 21. Wait, thank you. Okay, sea stars group together in areas where food is abundant. This pattern of population dispersion is blank. So, ano kayang tawag dito sa pattern na ito? They group together in areas where food is abundant. So, yung mga gantong questions, kahit hindi nyo na-tackle, you can use your test-taking techniques. May mga keywords din kasi minsan sa question na pwede nyo mahulaan yung sagot. So, dito, ano yung keywords? Group together, di ba? So, alin kaya dito yung, sa choices, yung group together? So, most probably, the answer here is letter A, clumped. Okay? So, these are the different types of species distribution. Okay, class. Take note, we always say species. Walang word na species. Ayoko, masakit sa tenga pag may naririnig na species. Okay, that is wrong. Species is both plural and singular form. So, lalo pag biology, ayokong makakarinig ng species sinasabi. So, it has to be always species. Okay. Different types of dispersion of species. We have here clumped. We have uniform. And we have random. Okay? So, yung clumped, bakit sila nagka-clump together? Most likely, or yung pinaka-reason why they clump together is because food is abundant there. So, dun yung mga sources of food, kaya dun sila nagsisiksikan. Pag uniform naman, like here in the example here is king penguins, so they would have uniform distribution because of their aggressive, na-maintain nila yon because of their aggressive behavior. Ayaw nilang mag-didikit-dikit. Okay? And then random naman yung dispersion And a very good example would be dandelion. They have random dispersion because the seeds are dispersed randomly by the wind. So they are dispersed by the wind, and the seeds, they land on random areas. Okay? Kaya nagkakaroon ng mga different distribution. Okay. Questions 22 and 23 refer to the population cycles of species A and B below. What is the most possible interspecific interaction between species A and B? Social distancing daw yung uniform. Very good. Okay. What is the most possible interspecific interaction between species A and B? So yung species A and B, that is letter C, predation. Predation yon. Balikan ko lang may question. Ano daw yung definite? Yung definite yung, ay, dinagdag lang siya sa choices. Pero uniform yung distribution naman kapag I thought you're referring to uniform. Dinagdag lang yung definite. Wala, tatlo lang talaga yung types of species distribution. So, clump, uniform, and random. Okay, going back to question number 22. So, it's predation. How did you know that it is predation? As you can see here, kapag tumataas yung predator, yung number of, yung population ng predator, doon naman bumababa yung prey. So, because of their interaction, that the predator is, the predator feeds on the prey. So, pag tumataas yung number ng predator, so, syempre, ang mangyayari, consequence is the prey, mababawasan sila, di ba? I just want to differentiate it. Ito yung life cycle or life ng predation. Pagka naman competition, ito yung very good example kasi ng competition. When one organism is grown, makikita nyo, tumataas yung population density. When the other organism is grown separately, tumataas din yung population density. But when they are grown together, kung sino yung mas nakakakuha ng mas resources, siya yung mas maraming resources, siya yung mas tumataas yung population density. So in this case, yung species na P. aurelia, siya yung mas nag-thrive in that environment. Okay? So yun yung competition. So pag predation, ganito. Pag competition, ito yung makikita nyo. Okay? Question number 23. Which pair of symbols below best describes the interaction between species A and B? What's your answer to 23? Ano kayang interaction between species A? So we know that it's, because we're still referring to the same illustration, so it's predation. Mamaya babalikan natin What about mutualism daw? Okay. So ang sagot dito is it's B. It's A. Okay? Ang nakakalito dun sa B, para silang pareho, di ba? Pero yung A kasi, yung dun sa, if we go back, yung A natin yung prey. So A is the prey and B is the predator. So their interaction should be negative, positive. Okay? Kasi yun yung prey, yung negative, predator is positive. Class, what is mutualism? Mutualism is when it's a symbiotic relationship. So when you say symbiotic relationship, the organisms, they grow closely to each other, or they are close to each other. And they both benefit from the relationship. So yun ang mutualism. They both benefit from the relationship. So ang interaction would be positive, positive. Okay? Kapag ka naman, ano pa ba yung choices? Commensalism, the interaction is positive, 0. So, commensalism yung isa, nagbe-benefit, yung isa, NR lang, ganon. So, positive 0. And the last one is parasitism. Pag parasitism naman, yung isa nag-benefit, yung isa naman, it will be harmed in the interaction. Okay? So, sabi nila, kapag daw, ang dami, no? Pagka daw mutualism, crush ka ng crush mo. Tama yun. Okay? Dun sa tatlo, mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism, ano kaya ang pinaka-ideal na relationship kung sa tao? Kung sa tao. Okay? Diba? Most ideal would be, of course, mutualism. Okay? Ano naman yung mas masakit? Parasitism ba o commensalism? Anong mas masakit? Parasitism or commensalism? So, yung iba, sabi nila, masakit daw ang parasitism. Pero ako sa tingin ko commensalism. Kasi NR na yung isa eh. O, diba? Tigilan na pag gano'n. Okay. Let's proceed. Naiiba ang usapan. Okay. Proceed na tayo ha. Number 24. If habitat is the organism's address, then the blank is the organism's profession. Okay. So what's your answer to question number 24? Habitat is the organism's address, then blank is the organism's profession. Answer here is niche. Okay. So niche is your ecological role. It's the sum na ito nung lahat-lahat nung interaction ng species, use niya of the biotic and abiotic resources. Okay. So, let me give you an example. So, suppose sa bahay nyo, di ba? That's your address. That's the habitat. Pero marami kayo nakatira sa bahay nyo. But each one of you, let's say your mother, your father, and yourself, you have your own profession or your own role. So that would be your different niches. But you have the same habitat or address. Okay? So, let me just go through the choices para alam din natin ano ba yung ecosystem engineers, keystone species, tsaka dominant species. So when you say ecosystem engineers, syempre sila yung they dramatically alter the environment. So a very good example would be beavers. So they alter the environment by creating dams, di ba? Kumukuha sila mga branches, tapos bumubuo sila ng dam. Now, dominant species naman, from the term dominant, okay, Christian, balikan natin yung question mo later, ha? Okay. So, yung dominant species naman, sila yung pinakamarami in number. So, they are the most abundant and they have the highest biomass in the area. Yung keystone species naman, sila naman yung they're not usually abundant, pero they have a pivotal ecological role. So for example, itong starfish na to, pag wala siya dyan sa environment na yan, bababa yung species diversity because yung kinakain ng starfish na to ay mussels or tahong, and those mussels would eat invertebrates and algae. So kapag wala yung, I'm referring to this starfish pagka wala ng specific na starfish na to, bababa yung species diversity kasi uubusin sila ng tahong. Okay? Justin Beaver ay ecosystem engineer. Okay. Balikan natin mamaya yung tapusin muna natin yung last question before we go back dun sa may tanong daw bakit pray daw yung A. Okay. Question 25. All of these factors may contribute to higher carrying capacity of a particular environment except, what's your answer to question number 25? yung sagot? Ano daw yung hindi nakaka-contribute to higher carrying capacity? So most of you answered C. Okay, that's correct. Letter C is the correct answer. Now, what is carrying capacity? Carrying capacity is the maximum number of individual that a specific environment can sustain. Okay? So, for example, ang pinakamadaling analogy nito, sa isang room, pag meron kayong 30 na upuan or 30 seats in one room, that's the maximum number of individuals that the room can carry. Okay? Na pwedeng makaupo. Okay? Pag lumampas na doon, hindi na makakaupo. So, parang in the same way here, because of the limited resources in the environment, hanggang dito lang yung number of individuals na kaya ng environment na yun. And if you look at the choices, all of these are positive except for the third one, which is negative. Isa pa pala yun, gusto ko lang sabihin. Minsan ginagawa ko yun kasi nakakalito, di ba? When you're looking at the question, all of these may contribute except blank. Minsan nakakalito. So what I do, sometimes I cover the question and I look at the answers or the choices. Tapos, titingnan ko kung ano yung maiba. Because it's a multiple choice type of question or type of test, ibig sabihin, isa lang yung sagot. So, if you look at this, positive tong A, positive din yung B, negative yung C, positive yung D. So, even if nalito ka na, ano ba yung hinahanap, yung nakaka-contribute ba o yung hindi, alam mo na ang sagot ay, ang naiiba ay letter C. So, most likely, yun yung sagot. Okay? So, that ends all the items for the biology virtual class or the Jumpstart classes. Let me just go back dun sa, sabi daw, bakit pray yung A? Titingnan mo lang dun sa mga waves. Nako, medyo controversial yung waves na yan. Ha? Okay, so yung waves, kung makikita mo dito, kapag ka kasi, ito yung B natin, di ba? Kapag ka mataas yung B, pababa naman yung A. So, yun yung naging basis natin. Kaya yung A, yun yung prey, yung B yung predator. Okay? May questions pa ba? We're done with all the items. I hope may natutunan bang bago? May natutunan ba kayo? Okay, thank you din sa pakikinig. Sana may bago kayong natutunan.